Everybody's got a price, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a pod, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus D'Angelo, and we are back for another episode of Everybody's Got a Pod. And, of course, I could never do this without the man himself, WWE Hall of Famer, the $1 million man, Ted DiBiase. What's going on, Ted?
Hey, it's another day, another dollar. Or maybe I should say another day, another million.
Well, that would be better.
Hey, character, right?
I would like that. But man, I'm liking what we got going on this week on the podcast because, Ted, we're turning our attention back to your time in Georgia 40 years ago, 1984. And this time we're picking up where we left off, which is where Brad Armstrong had defeated you for your national heavyweight championship when he was dressed as Mr. R. And then you would leave the territory briefly. And, brother, I cannot wait to get into these notes. We've got some great ones.
Oh,
but
God.
Before we get this show on the road, I need to remind everybody to get over to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@everybody'sgotapod and get subscribed. We've got tons of great clips, including our YouTube exclusive clips that come out every week. We have full episodes. And, of course, we have the Hacksaw Hour with Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And, yep, he brought that original show to the channel. He's also providing fantastic videos from his day-to-day life, and they are must-see. So seriously, stop missing out. Stop what you're doing. Go get subscribed and support our show. Again, it's youtube.com/@everybody'sgotapod. So, Ted,
I love Duggan. Duggan and I are very good friends, but I'm sure that his probably is a real ho.
Man, that guy and his charisma he's as soon as that red light comes on, brother, he's just all over it. And yeah, he's fun. He brings a lot of energy to the show. And those videos of him showing like his house, his property, like, his wrestling collection, stuff like that, man, they got over big with the audience, and they're just a lot of fun to watch. So yeah, go and check it out, guys. It's youtube.com/@everybody'sgotapod. All right, so let's jump into these notes. Like I mentioned, Ted, last time we left off, you had just lost your national heavyweight championship to Brad Armstrong, who had showed up as Mr. R in an angle that was just unbelievably fun. We had a blast watching that last time. And it appears that the whole thing was done because you had been called back to Japan for a tour that would last nearly 3 weeks and eat up most of the month of March for you in 1984. 3 weeks in a foreign country, way on the other side of the world. What did Mel think when you'd have to take a long trip like that?
I think the reason I went back to Atlanta, to help Melanie in terms of, okay, this, now it's one thing that we're married and I'm not home every night, but we're married, I'm not home every night, and she's by herself with a baby.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And that's a lot. And so her father had retired, and so they moved to Mississippi because Melanie's mother is from a little town about 40 miles south of Jackson called Crystal Springs. And so they moved back to Mississippi. And the other thing, when the baby showed up, and Mel's parents knew that I was for real, that was the healing of all the wounds.
Oh, good.
And everything was cool. So when I went back to Atlanta for that reason, because when I'm there, I'm coming home every night. But now I'm getting these opportunities to go to Japan come up, and she understood that too. Okay, you're going to be gone 3 weeks, but when I come home, I'm either home doing nothing, or if I am wrestling, I'm wrestling here locally in this territory, and I'm coming home every night. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like I went back to Atlanta to help her in that way. Like, okay, it's one thing if I'm in Baton Rouge and I'm not home every night and gone half of the time, and then I go to Japan for 3 weeks and I come back and and so then it's almost like you're never home. But in Georgia, it was I was home every night unless I was going on a trip to Japan. So.
And what about the office reaction? Like, how did Ole and the folks in charge, Barnett, all of them react to their hottest heel leaving?
And they were fairly understandable about it because I mean, you run programs, and actually, it's probably good, that because if I'd go to Japan for like 3 weeks, I mean, it would be maybe a whole month before I went back, or longer. But I think the most I went to Japan, I think I did like 3 or 4 tours in a year. But I mean, one would be a 5-week tour. That's the longest. A couple of 4-week tours, a couple of 3-week tours. Number 2, I grew to love Japan. And it's you talk about, man, why couldn't we have it this way in the United States? Okay, you go over there, you're on a guarantee. You're going to get paid at the end of the tour in cash, and and again, it's kind of like no checks because wrestlers would fear that, well, I'll get home and then this check will bounce or something. Mm-hmm. So the only thing you paid for the entire time you were in Japan was your food.
Pretty reasonable.
I mean, the travel, everybody traveled on a bus. All the hotels were paid for. All you had to pay for was your food. And my gosh, had that been true over here, wow.
And that's as opposed to what you were dealing with in the WWF, which is like you're paying for your own hotel, you're paying for rental cars. Like there's a lot of overhead expense. Plus you're paying for your food while you're out and about. Going to a gym, there's so many things that you've got to pay for. Where Japan, pretty cushy situation for a wrestler. I spoke to Jake about working in Japan previously on an episode of the Snake Pit, and he pointed out that he really didn't enjoy himself over there. He'd actually referenced that the toilets are built right into the floor, where you kind of have to like hover over it if you got to like take a dump or whatever. So, Ted, was that ever something that got to you when you were working over there?
Okay. If you're in a public bathroom, okay. Mm-hmm. But in your hotel room, no, there's a toilet.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so I just made sure that I took care of business before I left that hotel. Because it's true. I mean, they looked like urinals. But they were, gosh, I don't know.
Look them up, folks. You can find pictures of this on the internet.
They were long and kind of rectangular, and you would squat over that and go to the bathroom.
Jake was funny when he was talking about it, because he's like, so I'm over here eating all this food that I don't normally eat, and then when I've got to go relieve myself, I've got to deal with that situation. He was like, so it could get pretty messy.
Yeah. I would say some of the bigger guys.
Oh, could you imagine?
Take 2 chairs, right? Put one chair on one side of their urinal, and one chair on the other side, and so put one cheek on one chair and one cheek on the other chair. Let her rip.
There you go, folks. The $1 Million Man just solved that problem over there in Japan. So give that some thought. So we won't dwell too much on your time in Japan, but we'll hit some of the highlights before we turn our attention back to your time in Georgia there. First off, you're going to kick off your tour by teaming up with David Sammartino, the son of Bruno Sammartino. You're going to take on Giant Baba and Takashi Ishikawa. So David's name, of course, is not going to come up here very often on the show. And you're working with him during a period when his legendary dad is still an active part-time wrestler. So the Sammartino name at this time is carrying a lot of water. What did you think of David?
He wasn't his dad. Nice kid, but he wasn't his dad. in my opinion, he didn't have it. And apparently nobody else thought he had it either, because he didn't go anywhere.
No, unfortunately, he did not quite live up to the hype, certainly that his father set, or the high bar that his father set.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, not a lot of people were. At one point, Bruno Sammartino was like, I think he was one of the most well-paid athletes in the world. So any sport, Bruno Sammartino was making some of the best money out of all of them.
Bruno was a nice enough guy. I mean, but I'm going to tell you something. You know, the first time I went to New York, and I wasn't there very long.
No.
I remember me and Tito, we went together. I think that's where he took the name Tito Santana.
Okay.
And he met his future wife there, and he stayed. I left. I went back to work for Bill Watts. I was shocked at the work, the wrestling. I mean, it was like, how can these people watch this? And it was so easy to tell that it was phony.
You felt that way about Bruno too?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
Nice. Burying the guy. He's from a different generation. So just
nice guy, Italian.
Yeah.
He told me, he said, yeah, he said, I met your dad a couple times. Real nice guy. I had no problem with Bruno, but his work, I mean, it's like, and then the guy who came after him, Bob Backlund. Bob Backlund was a legit, amateur wrestling champion, and another good guy, but he looked like Howdy Doody.
Yeah.
I mean, he had the muscles and everything, but it's hard to explain.
Yeah, I think that that was just the general consensus from guys of your era. Like, how did this wrestling get over? But, for context, Bruno was brought up in like the 50s, 60s style wrestling, where it's like long matches, a lot of mat work, bear hugs and shit. So I think that that's kind of what he was up against when he was coming up, with this new generation of guys like yourself.
Yeah. Well, and, and that may very well be true. I mean, again, all the respect in the world for the guy. God bless him. How many guys can wrestle for any organization and be called the world champion.
That's incredible. Yeah. No, and
again, was it? Somebody said that Bruno sold out Madison Square Garden more than any other performer.
Yep. So a proven draw. Then there's no taking that away from him.
Yeah. But again, the style of wrestling and I don't know, it's just like, I was kind of taken back by it. It was, I don't know, you could almost see through it in some cases.
During this tour, you're also going to team up with Ron Bass, and he's another guy you'd later find yourself working with in the WWF. Any memories of Outlaw Ron Bass, or just not enough time around him?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Ron was a good guy. Really liked him. Good guy. I mean, I can't say, I don't remember. I mean, in terms of wrestling skills or whatever, he was, he was pretty good. I don't think that Ron was ever like the main event guy.
Not bad enough to stand out, so that's good enough.
Yeah.
Another American name you're going to team up with while you're there is Bugsy McGraw, who would come to be best known for his time in Florida and JCP. Ted, Bugsy, probably not going to talk about him a whole lot either. So now's our shot. Any thoughts or memories?
You know what? If you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything.
Oh, wow. Okay. So didn't have a great experience around Bugsy?
I mean, okay. He had a lot of talent, but, just on a personal level, he was just, if whatever promoter was booking him had their hands full.
So if you can expound on that a little bit, I won't ask you to bury the guy, but like what kind of stuff was going on with Bugsy behind the scenes?
I can't even remember, but I just his personality just was, I don't know. It's one of those things where I just said, "Hey, Bugsy, how you doing?" And I went my own way. I didn't want to get to know him.
You know, the only other time I've heard you say that about guys is, of course, the Ultimate Warrior, who we bury on here all the time, but also Matt Bourne was another one, and Buzz Sawyer. So that kind of paints a clear picture as to maybe what you thought of Bugsy outside of the ring.
Yeah, you know, and you know, you go back to Matt Bourne. You know, Matt Bourne was a good worker.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was good in the ring, but he was just, you know, in real life, it was just you know, well, ask Jim Duggan.
Yeah, not a great relationship.
Oh no, yeah, Duggan beat the crap out of him.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody clapped.
Well, let's talk about one of the Japanese talent you'll work with while you're on this tour, and that is a guy that I've heard you put over here on the podcast before, but let's talk about him again. It's Jumbo Tsuruta. Ted, what can you tell us about Jumbo and his impact on you and your career?
What a guy. I mean, the first time I met him, I was still in college at West Texas State playing football. And Jumbo Tsuruta came and wrestled for the Funks in the Amarillo territory. And that's where I actually first met him and first got to know him. And, you know, you talk about a guy who had some credentials now. I think he had wrestled for Japan in the Olympics.
Mm.
I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure he did. So here's a guy who and became a good, you know, great worker. And you know, and of course, you know, when I went to Japan the first time, you know, they had made him a big star. You know, he and Giant Baba, that they were the top of the Japanese side.
Well, they clearly had a high opinion of you because you're working with Jumbo in singles, but you're also working against him as he's teaming up with Giant Baba in tag team matches during this tour. So it's like, you know, you come back and you're immediately like, okay, you're an upper echelon talent in their eyes, which is fantastic. Yeah, and it makes me wonder, Ted, you know, you always mention that there was great money on the line every time you go to Japan. And it just makes me wonder, during this period of your career, 1984, did you ever consider packing up Mel and moving over to Japan full time to work for Baba?
Oh yeah, nobody went over there full time. I mean, you were invited on tours, and obviously depended on who you were. And if you were going to go to work in Japan for All Japan Pro Wrestling, you were going to be booked by either Dory Funk Jr. or Terry Funk. Okay.
And it was only ever temporary deals.
Well, I mean, they had to, you know, if we went on a 3-week tour, when we went home, the Japanese wrestlers were off until the next tour.
Oh, okay.
You know, so it wasn't like we went home and then they just kept wrestling every week. You know, we would start a tour and end a tour, you know, like, and, you know, when we went home, they went home.
Gotcha.
Yeah, until the next tour.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, let's take a minute to discuss our fantastic sponsor that is changing the lives of men everywhere. Of course, we are talking about Blue Chew. Are you ready to perform with the confidence of the $1 million man in the bedroom? Are you ready to leave your partner feeling like $1 million? Are you ready to get that thing so hard you could go hunting with it? If the answer to all those questions is yes, it's time for you to give Blue Chew a try. Blue Chew can help increase your performance and regain that old confidence where it counts the very most. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so that you can plan ahead or be ready when that opportunity springs up. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part of it, it's all done online. You can forget about those visits to the doctor's office, no more weird, awkward, uncomfortable conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy anymore. It comes right to you. Blue Chew's tablets are made right here in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. But you know the drill, guys. There's not going to be anything discreet about your package. Men everywhere have never been more excited to see their mail carrier arrive, because when your package arrives, your package arrives. Listen, I know what your next question is. Will it actually work? Why don't you try it for free and find out for yourself? Something free from the $1 Million Man? That's right. You can try it right now for free. All you have to do is pay $5 shipping. That's it. Place your order now and give your partner a very pleasant surprise. Women are attracted to confidence, and Blue Chew can help give you confidence where it counts. Don't wait any longer. Time to chew it and do it. Take advantage of our special deal. Again, you can try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code EGAP at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code EGAP, and receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information, and we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring Everybody's Got a Pod. Let's get back to when you returned to Georgia here and you resumed your feud with Brad Armstrong. But now you're paired with Paul Ellering and the Spoiler, who are both members of the original Legion of Doom there with Jake Roberts and the Road Warriors. Ted, it sounds like an argument could be made that you were briefly part of the original Legion of Doom during this period.
Maybe.
I mean, Ellering is like your manager. You're teamed up with one of their members. Like, that feels like you're kind of in the Legion of Doom. They don't recognize it, but I'm sure after people hear this, a Hall of Fame ring is coming your way for Legion. Let's talk about Ellering. He was one of the top heel managers in wrestling at the time, and believe it or not, I don't know if you know this, he's still active in WWE today, managing the Authors of Pain tag team. Do you have any memories of working with? Yeah, he's still a manager right now in WWE.
I didn't know that.
I was at SmackDown here in Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago, and he was ringside, and I was like, "There's Paul Ellering." That's
wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So he's still working at a really high level. What are your memories of being around Precious Paul?
Oh, he's a good guy. He's a good guy, and I'm happy for him. You know. Yeah, I hope that he's working because he wants to.
Yes.
Not because he has to. So.
Absolutely. Really talented guy, and a guy that really, really connected with audiences over the years. Obviously, because it's, 40 years after what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And he's still on the biggest platform in professional wrestling. What do you think it is about Paul that got him over with the audience so well?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know Paul that well, but I mean, he was, he has a way of making you hate him. And again, that's charisma.
That's it. Now, how about the Spoiler, Don Jardine? He apparently was a guy who inspired The Undertaker with his top rope walk that he would do, and a number of other moves. I guess Undertaker is a big fan of his. Yeah.
Well, and yeah, the Spoiler was pretty, he was pretty good about keeping his identity to himself.
He was like Mr. Wrestling. He'd leave that thing on.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but he certainly would put it on before he walked in the building or something. But anyway, I don't think he wore it when he was driving down the road. Could you imagine passing a guy with a mask on and go, "Holy shit"?
I thought that last week when we were talking about Mr. Wrestling, like, this guy, it's like, imagine passing him, or like Jake told a story about going into a convenience store with him once, and he had the mask on, and the guy behind the counter thought he was getting held up, and he ended up pulling a gun out.
Well, and I tell you what though, but when I did see Mr. Wrestling #2 without the mask, it made me realize his age. And then I was really impressed because, I mean, here's an older guy. I mean, and he's you know, he had this look. I don't know how old he was, but he was certainly not, you know, a youngster. And the way he could move around in that ring was just crazy. So.
Now, would you say you were impressed with Mr. Wrestling too, and how old he was, but still skilled? Would you say that you were impressed with Don Jardine, the spoiler, and his ring skills? He was a pretty big man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. The spoiler was good. Yeah. And again, he's another guy who understood the psychology of wrestling. And it's kind of like, it's not necessarily how much you do, it's how you do it and when you do it. I mean, it's like, that's why it's hard for me to watch the WWE product today, because especially the guys, they go out there and they do a lot of moves and take a lot of bumps, big spectacular bumps, but it doesn't mean anything. Tell me a story, you know, make me hate you, make me love you. And it just, you know, it's kind of like, it's almost like they, I don't know, like they think that if I go out here and, you know, I take a big triple somersault off the top rope and land on my feet, they're going to love me. No.
Well, while you were away in Japan, the spoiler had won the national heavyweight title from Brad Armstrong. And at the end of April, Armstrong got his chance to reclaim the belt. Let's drop in on this moment that I think fans are going to remember very well.
You're looking here, you know, when the spoiler was crowned the champion, he thought that he was going to have that forever and ever. Well, here's a shot of the spoiler and his manager, Paul Ellering, who looks a little bit worse for the wear, coming into the arena. This was at Marietta, big championship night. Bob Armstrong was there, and of course the spoiler was going against the challenger, Brad Armstrong.
And of course Marietta is the hometown of the Armstrongs, but as things progressed, they got considerably rougher.
Well, they sure did. As you'll see in this next film clip, you'll watch part of the match, you'll see the outcome, you'll see what happens afterward. You'll see what happens to Bob Armstrong, you'll see Brad Armstrong, and if we can, and go to that now, watch. I think the thing tells everything you need to know.
Okay, there's no audio with the match, so I'll narrate. Brad Armstrong gets the victory and that national title. His dad, Bullet Bob, is in there celebrating with him. Don Jardine beside himself. He's going to attack Brad. Bullet sees what's going on, turns around, starts dealing on the spoiler. Bullet looking pretty good. Gets the spoiler on his back and starts whooping on him. But here comes Ted DiBiase, and you are giving it to the Bullet. He's down. Here comes one of his sons. You're going to take care of him. Throw him out. And now Jardine looks like he's got a nasty hold on the face of the Bullet. You're still stomping the Armstrong boy off the apron. Paul Ellering is up there with his arm sling, getting in on the action. Here comes another one. Knock him down. He's stomping. You're working on keeping people out while Jardine looks like he's working over the face of the Bullet. Bullet's struggling. You're stomping him. The crowd looks red hot. Oh, and here comes the Armstrong boys. Brad's got a chair. And everybody chases you guys out of the ring while they check on the Bullet, who's in a bad way. Okay, there it was. You guys break the nose of Bullet Bob Armstrong, and that actually leads to the creation of this shirt, Face Arranging by DiBiase, which is just great stuff. And by the way, guys, a ways back, we were talking about your time in Georgia, and I mistakenly said that you had broken Bob Armstrong's nose in a storyline for a brief feud that the two of you had earlier in your run. I was wrong. This is the moment when you would break his nose and would lead to you getting that incredible shirt. Man, what a great way to put heat back on you after leaving the territory, for that tour of Japan.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Just ramp it right back up. And I tell you, I loved working with Brad. Brad was, again, he's another kid like me who grew up in the business, and again had a father who was unbelievable worker. And again, as was my dad. And so that, you know, that makes the bond. I mean, there's always a bond. You know, it's kind of like, you know, you look at truck drivers. You know, I would say there's a brotherhood of truckers out there, because they share experiences that only truckers experience, or can, you know, good ones, bad ones, funny ones, sad ones. And the same thing in wrestling, especially if you're the son, you know, you're the second generation. And and again, Brad picked it up. He picked it up quick, and it was very good.
Man, those Armstrongs are all natural workers, and all learned very, very well from their father. So it's cool to see you, you know, kind of wrestling some wrestling royalty while you're down there in Georgia. It's just really fun how all the pieces kind of come together for something like that to happen. And coming out of this, you're teaming with the Spoiler a lot. And it's pretty much the only time during this run that you're going to be consistent, placed in a consistent tag team role. Ted, you're getting a combination of singles matches and tag team matches during this period. Would you say that you enjoyed bouncing between the two, or was it frustrating not to be able to kind of remain consistent?
It wasn't frustrating. It's just what did business require?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, you know, as long as I felt like I was being treated fairly, you know, it's kind of like, you know, you cannot be the number one guy all the time, especially if you're a heel, you know, because, you know, ultimately the babyface in the blow off match has got to win eventually. And if you're the babyface, yeah, you can stay on top for a long, long time, like JYD. JYD, oh my gosh, you know, he was, you know, they started doing that chant for him down in New Orleans, and he just got to be one of the, I mean, you know, a big, big name, man. You know, you know, it's like, but if you're the bad guy, you know, eventually you get beat. I mean, it's kind of like, it depends on how far out they, you know, plan. It's like, you know, like how many matches can we get out of this feud? Who knows? I mean, and sometimes you'll have a feud with the guy, and then something else, you'll go another direction, and then they might rekindle the old flame, you know, where something happens, and, you know, that guy that you thought you were rid of, you know, comes back and gets you again. Anyway, it's, I don't know, it's just so, it's how you do it.
Just the way the pieces get shuffled, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
The two of you are going to work a number of notable teams at this time, and one that stuck out for me was the tag team of Jerry Lawler and Austin Idol. We've talked about Lawler here before, but Austin Idol is a name that I had no idea you had ever worked against. And, you know, Idol, not sure if you know this, he's still pretty active today. It was most recently seen on NWA programming last year working as a manager. So he's still out there getting it. He's been described as a marginal worker with a great physique and excellent mic skills. Ted, any thoughts or memories when it comes to Austin Idol?
Well, I mean, that's pretty much right on. And again, it's kind of like JYD. JYD was not a great wrestler in terms of in-ring skills. It's just that he had so much charisma. I mean, and, you know, and his promos were so good. And if you're good on that mic, you know, the mic can make up for a lot. I'll give you another example. Michael Hayes. And Michael Hayes still is, you know, he's working behind the scenes for the WWE even today. Michael Hayes had real good mic skills. But if you ever watch the Freebirds work, the two guys that are in the ring most of the time are Terry Gordy and oh shoot, what's his name?
Buddy.
Buddy. Yeah. Gordy and Buddy were pretty much the guys in the ring most of the time. But on the interviews, who spoke most of the time? Michael. He had real good mic skills.
And Michael is, yeah. So you would put Austin Idol in the same category as a guy like JYD or Michael Hayes, just in the not a great worker, but he didn't need to be in order to get the crowd on his side.
Well, I don't think that I would put him at a level with the Michael Hayes or JYD, but you know, a similar deal. You know, it's like, you know, if he was pretty good on the mic, okay, but yeah.
Well, after his plane crash in the late 70s, which would claim the life of wrestler Bobby Shane, Idol did not like to travel by plane and mostly restricted himself to the Mid-South region of America for his work. Ted, did you ever hear any stories about the crash or get to meet Bobby Shane before he passed away?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't know him.
Yeah, apparently this crash was, I mean, it killed Bobby Shane and put Austin Idol in a really bad way. I believe Gary Hart was on the plane too, and it ended up saving some lives. So I mean, yeah, that's enough scaring anybody away from flying, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you believe that if Idol had been more willing to travel, that he could have been a guy that Vince would have featured in the WWF? I mean, because again, great physique guy, great microphone guy. That kind of seems like it's Vince's bag.
Yeah, he might have been, you know, he might have been.
We're going to continue the train rolling next week. And in the meantime, I want our listeners to make sure to follow Ted on all of his social media at MDM Ted DiBiase. Follow the podcast on social at Ted DiBiase Pod on all platforms. And you can follow me and drop your questions on Twitter at Marcus P. D'Angelo. Man, always fun to take a look back to one of these times in your career that doesn't really get talked about as often as it should, because it's pretty fun stuff you're doing down there in Georgia. Yeah, we had a good time. And everybody, always remember that everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man. We'll catch you guys next time right here on Everybody's Got a Pod.